everybody. Hello, world. Hello, Kira.
Hello, world. Hello, Geoff.
How are you doing today?
What's going on here?
Let
me help you out.
Thank you. So helpful as we assemble our everything, our Macs.
Yeah, right.
Everybody has a Mac.
Okay. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
Happy episode 21.
Happy episode 21. Can you believe it's been 21 episodes?
No. And I love every minute of them. And I think we have a lot of people that do as well, which is really freaking cool.
I think it's pretty cool.
I love the fact that people love the cat in the last podcast where it was like, we're talking about something really important. And everyone's like, love the cat that's walking by.
That's right.
I'm like,
oh,
hey.
I mean, my mother listened to it, and we're sitting there, we're talking, and you see us on the video version, and then a cat will just walk across the screen.
The kittens have a nice comedic relief,
throughout.
Yeah,
throughout.
But today is no exception of such an amazing topic that we're bringing to you guys today.
Today's no exception.
And Geoff and I always, before we start our podcast, always kind of talk about what is top of mind and what would be a good topic, and we would kind of really go through it. And that could be a podcast in itself, like the pre-podcast. And this one, I have to say, by far, is one that's like really, really fascinatingly twisting of the mind a bit. It gets you out of your comfort zone a little bit more than you realize. So
I think that we have a thing about comfort zones. You know that old quote it says like there's like two circles on a piece of paper, and it's like your comfort zone is here,
right?
And get outside of the
and
comfort
you can't
zone
grow until you hit the red. And I feel like that's what our podcast is about. It's pushing you outside of your own little box that you create in your reality.
100%.
Whatever your reality is and who dictates that.
That's right. And people don't get out of their comfort zone too easily.
I feel like it's even worse today than before. If you don't believe someone's opinion, you're a terrible person automatically. It's just very polarizing, and that person's no longer deserves your respect because they don't have the same opinion, which is really bizarre. And I think that's what's great about what we do, in the sense that we can both disagree and have varying differences of opinion, but we still wildly respect one another and are still
brother and sister.
Correct. That'll never end.
We want to set an example that two people can still be brother and sister and all's good, but we can disagree on things like no matter. We can, we
can throw it down.
We can like throw things across the room at each other,
But we're still bestest of bestest, brother and sister.
Always. And we need more brother and sisters.
I think it's open-mindedness. It's like, hey, do you think everything is 100% in your brain? Like, do you believe that everything you think is reality and perfect? Everyone has this ego that's like, no, I'm right. And you're wrong. And here's why. And it's like, what happens if you're wrong? And is there a wrong? What is truth?
What is true? What is the truth?
What is truth and what is not?
I think that that's a very big question. And I think that I don't understand. I've actually asked a lot of people this because I'm trying to figure it out. We mentioned this last week. We went into it a little bit too, is I don't understand how people there's such a lack of open-mindedness in the world, in everything, like you may hate a politician. You may hate AOC like none other because of her politics. But that doesn't mean that if you were hanging out with her, that you would dislike AOC.
The actual human being.
As a person.
Correct.
So, and the same goes the other way. You may hate, what's his name? Mitch McConnell.
Right.
But if you were sitting at dinner with them, you like and talking about other things, you might really like the guy.
Right. He might, it's like anything. Like, if they're your family members, do you hate them because they have a different point of view than you? Maybe, depending on who you are, I suppose. But, I have met family members who are stark conservative. Mm-hmm. Does that mean I hate them and we get into battles and fights? No. I mean, everyone's entitled to their beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Where it becomes a problem is where what you believe is 100% true. And everything else, the opposite, is false. And
so when it's an absolute.
I think it's like when people go into absolutes is where I start to raise the alarm of, how do you know? So what is true? How do you know that that's true 1000%? Is that fact? What's a fact? Can you prove a fact?
Well,
can you prove to me that climate change is not happening?
No, I mean, the thing is, I think it brings up a fascinating question. I think there are a lot of issues like climate change that are you look at both sides of the data, and the data will oftentimes say completely opposite to each other.
Correct.
Completely opposite.
And then what people will do is then, because the data is completely opposite, they'll go into the credentials of the person who created the data.
That's right.
And the credentials are exactly the same. They are both highly esteemed scientists. So then you're like, so what is real? Who's right? Who's wrong? Is there a right? Is there a wrong?
So
does there have to be an ultimate truth to everything? And I think that's where it becomes a problem, where people are like, no, I'm right and you're wrong. And it's like an ego. I need to feel like I know what I'm talking about all the time. But how can you prove? No one can prove even that climate change is happening.
So I guess it also brings up the question is reality, is the world, is what we're living in, is what's happening more, are we learning that it's more subjective than we might have thought it was? I
think we have a hard time as human beings
wrapping our head
around not believing one thing or another. Like we feel like we can't just live our lives loosey-goosey and wake up like a newborn baby and just open to anything.
Yeah.
That to people freaks people out, because that's like, I have no grounding. I have no foundation. I don't have a core belief system.
Mm-hmm.
Without that core belief system, I don't know who I am. So if you're just like, well, I don't know what's real and what's not, you feel a little freaked out by that. And I think that's what creates these like hard beliefs that people put in their head, And, to add to it, are these beliefs that you created, or are these the beliefs that the media has fed you? Can you distinguish between the things that you have been feeding off of and ingesting from the media and to your own personal belief?
Or the media or the people around you in your life.
Correct. The influence.
Your religion.
Because all of that is information, and it pulls, and your brain takes it in, and you create your own perception of the world, and you create your own truth around
that.
The people you're around, the media, everything you consume. And that's why it's very imperative to be so very cautious about what you would consume and allow your brain to take in, because it creates brain waves and patterns around that. So if you only consume one piece of media that has a particular stance, that will just feed that part.
That's right. And so people who wake up and read CNN every day that's what CNN says becomes their belief system. People who wake up and read Fox News every day, what Fox News says becomes their belief system.
And that's the truth.
Over time. So
or
that
they read one,
truth.
Right. They read a headline and then it's, oh, I don't even read the article, just reading the headline.
They just even read the headline. That's
and
right.
then it becomes immediately a synapse in your brain where it says truth.
Truth.
And anyone that goes against it is a moron.
I mean,
it's very interesting to see how quickly our brains can be changed and manipulated that way. There's a reason why they call it programming on television programming.
That's what it's doing.
That's what it's doing.
That's what it's doing.
It's programming that if you watch a specific type of genre so much, that's what your brain takes in as a program. Your brain is a computer. You're feeding it programs. You have to decide what programs you want to feed it on a daily basis.
That's right.
I used to be one of those people that would only read CNN every single day, morning, CNN, MSN, New York Times, Post-Gazette, LA Times. I would never read Fox News. Why would I want to read something that's going to just anger me and differences? And then I started to notice a shift in the media. I started to become hyper aware and more conscious of what I was reading. And I'm like, my God, this is so biased. I mean, really biased. And I was like, I can't read any of this anymore. This is so, I was shocked with how CNN had changed their voice, or maybe I became more aware of what I was consuming.
Yeah.
But I noticed immediately that I was like, I'm just feeding the same pattern, the same program that's in my brain. What would happen if I started reading something else? Outside your little bubble that you create in your world.
I think that, I think that people, I think that we need to be more aware of that people need to be more aware of how much things around them influence what they think and what they believe and how they feel. It's hard for people to be subjective about that, but it's hard for people to be subjective, like you said, because it doesn't give them a core belief system, a core a value system.
Right.
So how do we help people get there?
Well, I think you had mentioned, I think I asked you on a past podcast where I was like, when you wake up, is it like Geoff's newborn baby eyes opening up every morning? And it's like, just see the world as it is. And you're like,
the truth.
Yeah. So Geoff feels comfortable in the position of not knowing everything and being open to anything that comes his way, which is a very rare quality to have. And he's single, ladies, by the way.
Thank you, Kira. You're too. No,
but it's true. I mean, not many people are able to wake up and have that. I'm open, and I choose. It's a choice what you want to consume. It's a choice what you think in your world and how you make your own reality. And people don't realize that they're fed this through these channels and they think, oh no, that's truth. How do you know that? Prove to me that that's the truth.
Well, I said this last week or 2 weeks ago, but I feel like, and I said this to someone this morning too, is it really surprises me, in acting. I mentioned last week that, I was taught in college in acting, to not judge the character, you don't judge the character, which we mentioned last week.
Right.
And we also mentioned how you're taught that a character is a point of view. A lot of actors and actresses, because I'm on set a lot, many of them, if not most, take the, very far left point of view on things. And it really surprises me in that realm because I don't understand. You're taught to see things from other people's point of view and to try to understand what they're about. And I don't see a lot of those people trying to do that. And
right,
it actually kind of bothers me because I am such an artist and I love my fellow artists that, on set. And so when nobody is even trying, yet we're taught to try, I'm like, why am I the only one? I mean, there are others, but it's rare, like, that tries to do that. Nobody's even trying, like, to see. They just have their point of views, and that's it.
That's it, and I'm right and you're wrong.
And I was asking someone this morning about that, like, why don't people try to make an effort to see the other side of the other perspective of things, to find out what the truth is over there, to try to see what people are seeing from that perspective. And yeah, like I was saying a second ago, it bothers me. It's confusing, and I think maybe it's because who I am, I just brought to acting when I learned it. I'm such, I'm an intellectual. I'm really into like learning and kind of that stuff, reading and learning. And maybe I just brought that to acting. Maybe a lot of artists don't, but still a lot of artists are into that. So like, I literally try to figure that out every day. Like why people don't try to see that. Some do, and some do a little bit, but it's just like, it's who I am, like constantly open to other points of view. So I wish other people could get there, and I want them to, because when you do see it like that, the world kind of it becomes a different view. Like everything changes because it releases a lot of, you don't feel as angry, you don't feel as, it's just, you see things a lot more clear. And so I think that we're making progress towards that, but I think that we just need to make more of an effort to try to understand where people are coming from and what truth they see in the world. Why are they seeing that as truth and I'm not? And that's a simple thing to do. Yeah, I feel like that I wish there was more of an effort made by people to try to.
So how do we
do it? I don't know.
And I think it comes down to being very careful about what you consume, what you allow yourself to consume on a daily basis. I noticed the more I was reading certain things, the more I would get angry. And then I started, and I couldn't understand why. I was like, oh, because I'm reading things that are negative. I think people don't realize the media fuels so much with, fuels so much of what we take in, of what truth is and what's true and what's not. And you can use that in multiple examples. You take global warming, facts on both sides.
There's so many
vaccinations, same thing. People that are anti-vaccinators have a plethora of scientists and doctors and nurses and resources saying how bad it is. And then the opposite side has the exact same side. So it's like immigration, guns. So my question is then, as it pertains to reality, and when we've talked about, this matrix type of system that we probably live in.
Well, according to logic,
right?
Odds, like logical odds, according to Nick Bostrom, who was on Joe Rogan last week, which was fascinating, by the way. You should check that. In his simulation theory, he said that's the most logical thing, but like I'm a Presbyterian. I was raised Christian, Presbyterians, I was baptized, did all that. But I'm looking at what he says about the simulation, and it's quite fascinating to watch him. You should watch this clip of Bostrom on Joe Rogan also talking about it. And for those that don't know, here's what the simulation theory says exactly. I'm going to sum up. It's like a 10-page document that has a lot of words, but it's very, very simple, and I can sum it up very quickly. All it is saying is that in the future, there's 3 possibilities of what could happen, and it has to be one of the 3 possibilities. The first possibility is that we all go extinct, which is not the most optimistic possibility, that literally we go extinct. Like that's one possible future. The second possibility is that for some reason, the people in the future, for moral reasons, maybe they decided we evolved and they decided not to use technology in this way. They decided not to make a simulation of what's happening. That's the second possibility. They just decided not to do it. The people in the future decided not to do it. And the third is that we're in a simulation, and that it has to be one of the three. That's his conclusion, because technology and virtual reality are advancing so quickly that in however many years, he doesn't specify because it's uncertain, however many years from now, we're going to be able to create virtual reality simulations that are indistinguishable from the reality we see now. That you'll be able to put on a thing and it will literally be a reality, not like the one we see now in virtual reality that like you kind of know it's fake, but that literally it's recreated.
So that's scary as.
It's like Elon Musk talks about it. And this is Elon Musk talks about it. Like how far we've advanced since Pong, which was like, and having
Pong.
And having Ataris back in the day. When you take that time and you do that, you put that much time to the future, our technology is going to go so advanced. So is it completely unreasonable and irrational to think that like, God, that's freaky, isn't it? That like future versions of us created this, and that we're in what they created.
Well, thankfully we won't be alive for that.
Like that is wild.
That's beyond our generation, Geoff. We're not around for that one. Like, hopefully I come back as a little bird or a tree and I won't have to deal with any of that.
Most people, there's a lot of resistance.
With that simulation theory, my question is, so what is true?
Well,
is there something that is being held back that is actually the ultimate truth that we're not able to see, and we keep battling against each other and all this, and there's actually an ultimate truth, but it's being held, and we actually can't reach that unless, if you think of Buddha or any of them, ultimate truth is higher consciousness. Do you think there's actually a true? Do you think there's an ultimate truth to anything? Or do you think the simulation is it just is? And it's either you accept the is, or you stoop yourself lower and battle between the two different versions of the truth. Is there a true? If that makes sense.
I think that is there a true? No, I think that's what we're going towards. I think that we're going towards a world where we accept is for is.
Right.
For being just things are as
like,
is.
For example, in Los Angeles, it's a, beautiful place to live. It's expensive, blah, blah, blah. But there's underlying issues going on that aren't really talked about. And you hear little tidbits here and there. So when I hear about them, I'm like, that's fascinating. Why isn't that on the front page of the news? Well, because the news only gives you so
their
much,
truth.
and they give you, correct, their truth. And it's like 0.002% of what actually is happening in the world. So though we're creating this truth type of foundation for ourselves, we're missing 99% of the rest of the information that we need to even make a true statement on anything, because we're not fed anything else except what we read, which is only like 0.5% of what's actually out there. So my question is the truth actually being withheld from us? For example, I have a feeling there's a lot more going on with the city. We have typhus downtown. We have West Nile. We have all kinds of things going on.
Well, there is a lot going on.
There is a lot going on. It's just not really talked about.
Homeless problem.
Correct. Now, if they talked about it, people would leave, and then comedy would go down in LA. So it's kind of like, no, everything's great, beautiful. Just look at the blue sky. So is there truth, and it's just being withheld? Area 51, truth that's being withheld.
I mean, it depends what what truth, which truth.
Right.
Like,
is it a facade that we all, these palm trees aren't real. They're not native to LA. So what is actually real? What is actually going on? How do you get to the bottom of it? Is there a bottom? I mean, these are all we could go on forever, but you start to really question things where it's like you question the things the things you believe, that are true. And then you start to question, once you get to that point, you start to question, is there an actual truth in anything at that point? We know the law of gravity exists and there's a few other laws, but
I think that's more of the direction.
Right.
I tend to go more towards the bigger truth that nobody really knows as to what's going on, as opposed to thinking that there's people, conspiring within our world to hide things. I tend to go with what I see, like on paper, like in what a person says and what I read. I tend to take everything that I see and say, okay, that is what that person says. Like that is what that, I tend to take that at face value, but I don't tend to believe it at face value.
Right. There's a difference. You're not creating that's not a program that you're feeding your brain. You're just taking it in.
At face
You're
value.
not allowing it to then permeate and create a pattern in your brain.
Maybe that's the direct.
You're actually consciously blocking a little bit, where it's like all this information's feeding, and the rest of us are like, well, now I believe that, aliens are real. Okay. Now I believe this. Okay, great. But for you, you're able to just say, I'm just going to take this in, and then I'm still going to form my own opinion. But maybe I don't even have an opinion.
That's what I do. I think that's what I do. And there are other people, but it's
very
hard
rare
to find them. I try to find them.
I'm very lucky to have you as a brother.
No.
And
You're pretty smart. You're pretty smart yourself, Kira. Kira, I mean, you're doing some great things. You really are.
I know, but we're talking about you today. It's all you. Just bask in the glory.
Oh, sister.
In any event.
Oh, sister.
Oh, brother. Brotherly love, sisterly love.
I think that
I personally err on the side that there is I think we're all battling these silly little battles on a daily basis on Twitter and Facebook, and no, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. And here's this fact and here's this source. And it's like, nobody cares. I just get to the point where I'm like, I don't care. And you're both right. And you're both wrong, because there's no ultimate truth.
Okay, let me give you absolutely. That's here's
move the F on.
But here's a perfect example of what you're saying here. That is kind of a good. Maybe we can. Can be like our last big point here. Is okay. So yesterday in the news, Greta Thunberg, who's the 16-year-old girl, it's been in the news talking about climate change a lot, and she was in the video where she was crying and telling people that we need to look at climate change, we need to do that, all of that. And then Trump responded to her. I guess they thought at the conference that Trump didn't acknowledge her as he walked out. And then Trump sent a tweet that said, she seems like a very happy girl who is, going to have a bright and wonderful future. Now, Trump did that, which he was obviously being sarcastic, kind of playing it up. Again, Trump does these perception tricks where some people could read Trump and be like, he believes that. He believes it. Maybe
or
he does.
He's being passive aggressive. We don't know.
Passive aggressive. So when I look at a tweet like that, guess what I do? I don't look either way. I look at it and acknowledge that both could be real. But I don't know if both are real. But I'm not going to stand on one being real and one not. But I do that with everything.
That's amazing. Honestly, I think that's the way to be. And you know what? How much happier are you versus someone who's like, this is stake in the sand. This is what I believe. And everyone else is stupid.
It lowers
I have to imagine it lowers the stress by 8 million %.
It does.
Just be able to say, okay, you both are right.
Because
maybe they're both right.
Because how would I know?
Right. Are you the ultimate authority of what's right and wrong?
Right. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I asked on Twitter the other day, and then I'll finish that on Twitter the other day, like, why do people get so mad at people disagreeing with them?
Raw, I'm right. You're wrong.
What?
I love it. I think it's hysterical.
Because we want to validate our opinion, but we want to validate our opinion to ourselves or to them.
Well, it's a self-worth and it's an ego.
I think it's ego.
I think it's your placing your own weaknesses that you feel that you have onto the other person.
You're projecting.
You're projecting. Thank you for the word. I love how I gave the definition. He gave the word. It's like Jeopardy. What is?
And then, yeah, that's what we
for
do here.
$1,000.
$1,000.
That's what it is. I think it is. I think people feel good when they're right. Oh, I'm right. And I put a stake in the ground and this is what I believe. And it's like,
is that what it is? Is that what it is?
I mean,
I'm genuinely curious.
Oh, my sister was like that. It was a nightmare.
So then I tweeted it, or what did I do? So today then Greta put on her Twitter profile as her description, a very happy young girl looking forward to a bright and wonderful future. Brilliant.
Brilliant.
It's so brilliant. And I put that in a tweet, and I tweeted it to Scott Adams, who I think is great, and who I talk about a lot. And I said, clever response to Trump's tweet. Got to give her credit, because I don't take bias. I consider everybody's opinion. And so Scott retweeted it, and when Scott retweeted it, of course, it got 1 million likes and retweets, but it got comments. It got a lot of comments with a lot of people with very direct opinions about it. But the thing is, when people give their opinion, they don't really stay on topic, because a lot of these opinions, the big thing that they were saying today, and by the way, both sides do this. The left does this, the right does this. Today it was the right doing it. The excuse was that's one of her handlers that tweeted it. Like that it's not her. But that has no...
It doesn't matter.
Because anybody, public figure, could be having their handlers do it. Like,
what difference does it make?
Anybody could be having their handlers
still genius.
do it.
Whoever wrote it, it doesn't matter.
So I look at that.
I'm going to nitpick.
And I say, well, Greta could have done it. Her handlers could have done it.
Who cares?
But it doesn't bother me who does it. I think
ultimately it's like, hey guys, let's like open the mind a little bit, take off the blinders a little bit, maybe read Fox News, maybe read CNN.
And here's
start consuming something other than your own belief system and stop creating your own bubble that you already have around you.
But here's the other message that conservative types, you have to label sometimes, conservative types were saying that saying she's a very happy girl looking forward to a bright, wonderful future goes against her message. They're like, she views that the world's going to end. That's going against her message. Okay, that's not taking everything into effect. What she's doing here is it's clever. It's showing optimism. Maybe it's showing she agrees with Trump. Who knows? But that being clever and putting an optimistic point of view, that outweighs in this instance of going against whatever they view as her message was.
1,000%.
So you have to, people aren't good at viewing the whole thing. They just view half of the situation, and a half of opinion, as actually Scott has said, and other people, a half opinion, and they just view it in that piece of it. I can't deal with half opinions. Like I can't. I'm not going to debate somebody on a half of an opinion.
Same. I can't. I'm just like, nope. I got things to do.
Well, because you're not even seeing. It's like when people are trying to eat vanilla ice cream or chocolate ice cream. If the person's just going to start debating the vanilla ice cream, then we aren't even debating
Correct.
The other ice cream.
It's just not even worth. It's not even worth the time at that point.
So here's my big question. Maybe we can end on this. Is I wrote an article a couple of years ago called "The Rise of the Seventh Sense." And I wondered within it if way back when, if taste was a sense, and so eating different things, if somebody brought in, like a cave person brought in another thing to eat, if people were like, why would you eat anything like that? No, we're only eating this. Like if perception, the way we perceive things, is the new sense that we didn't realize we had.
I need to read this article.
And if perception is evolving, we're evolving into a new sense and its perception. And that's why, because it's unfamiliar as a sense, like taste initially, tasting something new was unfamiliar. If we perceive something differently, that's wrong because we haven't evolved into that yet.
Right. Very fascinating indeed.
So if this could be a new...
Smart man you are, Geoff.
I'm just guessing. You don't have to credit.
Of course we do. Take the compliments. It's a good thing to take compliments.
I will. Oh, yeah, I'm putting my laptop up.
Anyways.
Yes.
What is truth? What is not?
What is truth? What is not?
Be open to everything. Take the blinders off for a day and see what happens. Maybe you'll just be a little bit happier.
I think so. Wonderful.
This was so fun. I can't wait for next week's podcast. We've already talked about it. It's amazing. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You guys are just going to have to tune in. This was so fun.
So fun.
Thank you all for joining us on this amazing topic. Hopefully you absorb it, like it, comment. We love getting all that feedback. So make sure you are following on all of the platforms.
Everything. We're on Google, Apple, Breaker, every podcast. YouTube. We're on the Tube. We have our own channel for this, and I put it on my channel.
Because we're fancy like that.
We're just fancy like that. Sometimes we've got the cat walking around.
It's like a little organized chaos, a little zoo in here.
Kira is full of energy today. I mean, just amazing.
I took my vitamins.
Took her vitamins. So thank you all. Episode 21, Launch Radio. Geoff and Kira, we are the future, and the future is Launch Radio. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
See you next week.